Welcome back. We've been covering a lot of ground on this Monday. We've been talking about those protests that have been happening in 3 different cities over the weekend. We talked about Chicago, and of course, we can't forget Paul Manafort's trial. Today. This is going to be really interesting.
Going into week 2, yeah.
Exactly.
That's our top story. We're going to go into the second week of the trial today. Now, Manafort, as you know, is facing charges of bank fraud, income tax evasion, and most recently, witness tampering. That's what had him put back in jail and in solitary confinement, something his lawyers are complaining about. Well, the newest development is Manafort's former accountant, Cindy Laporta, was granted immunity for testimony she gave on Friday. She claimed that she helped both Manafort and his partner Rick Gates commit financial fraud while working on Manafort's tax returns. That what Laporta is claiming is that Rick Gates asked her and other accountants, other tax preparers, to alter the amounts of a loan so that Manafort would have a lower tax liability. What Laporta is claiming specifically is that Gates told her that Manafort's tax bill was too high, Manafort didn't have the money to pay for it, and then directed her to, well, fudge those returns, make it look as if Manafort owed less money than he actually did. Laporta also claimed that she was unaware that Manafort controlled several foreign bank accounts that loaned money to his political consulting company. I guess, well, presumably said that to counter Gates's narrative that Manafort couldn't afford to pay the taxes.
Right. So meanwhile, you have, speaking of Gates, Rick Gates, he could testify next week. He may or may not. I'm hearing other reports saying he could testify this week. So we're not sure on that exactly, but the prosecution said it's constantly evaluating the need to call new witnesses.
Yeah, they're hedging on that. They're not really saying whether they're going to call Gates.
I know. I'm a little confused.
Do
you think it's because he's kind of a weak witness? I mean, you've got a man that reportedly has lied multiple times, so his credibility is already in question. He was his business partner. I
think they're very concerned about his credibility as a witness.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Well, let's ask our next guest, Larry Klayman, former federal prosecutor and founder of Freedom Watch. Thank you for joining us today, Larry. Larry, what do you suppose the reason is for the hesitation with Gates?
Well, Gates is a certified liar. I mean, that's what he is. He pled state's evidence to get off light. We don't, of course, know what the sentence is yet. It depends probably on what he gives Mueller's team during this trial, assuming he testifies. But yes, he's a very damaged witness, and so is Miss Laporta, the CPA, who fudged all these records. She won't be a CPA much longer. I can assure you of that. But all these people are out there just to save their own skin. And there very well may be, at the end of the day, regardless of whether or not they have proven any guilt by Manafort, there may be what you call jury nullification. And that the judge did not sequester the jury. They're able to go out on the internet, do whatever they want, see what's going on. They're, of course, told not to, but people are people. Boys are boys and girls are girls. And there's a very good chance that I don't think Manafort will be convicted here. And if he is, as I've said before, I believe they can go up to the higher court, have the entire conviction thrown out based upon the fact that Mueller did not have the authority to reach back this far on non-Russian collusion. It doesn't involve collusion, doesn't involve obstruction of justice and firing of Comey. It's totally an illegal prosecution. And on top of that, the president can pardon Manafort. So I think he's pretty confident sitting there that he's not going to be doing much time other than what he's already done.
Hey, Larry, so far as what you've seen, you're a former federal prosecutor, you've done defense work. Two-part question for you. A, so far, has the government gotten off to a good start in proving its case? And B, if your answer is no, and they continue down this road, do you think Judge Ellis would entertain a motion to dismiss before the defense even has to present their case?
A really good question. Well, they think they've gotten off to a good start. But Judge Ellis made it clear last week that you have a very high hurdle, quote unquote, to get over to show that Manafort had the intent to commit these crimes. And Judge Ellis can take this case away from the jury after the prosecution presents its case. There'll probably be, undoubtedly, a motion for a directed verdict by Manafort's lawyers. And maybe Judge Ellis will entertain that and actually grant it.
Well, Larry, they're also mounting a case, his defense team, to basically hang it all on somebody else. Politico reported, Larry, you may have seen it, that there are a few arguments they might try, which will put all the blame on Rick Gates, claiming Manafort was too busy to cheat on his taxes, or saying that Manafort came clean years ago, and no one said he broke the law then, for example. So Politico also says, Larry, that many attorneys believe Manafort is biding his time and waiting for President Trump to kind of swoop in on a white horse with a pardon. Do you think he should be convicted? I mean, we have like 25 counts, and I don't know, a couple weeks ago it looked like surely they'll get him on something. You say now they may not get him on anything, but do you think he should be convicted?
I don't know the evidence. No one knows it for sure. I mean, we haven't seen what's going to come in on Manafort's side, so I can't say that he should be convicted. But if I was Manafort, I would try to negotiate some kind of an agreement with the IRS to pay them off over time, give President Trump a little cover, and get pardoned. I mean, the real outrage here is that he's being used as a whipping boy to get to the president, and Judge T.S. Ellis has said that. And the real outrage here is that Mueller never had the authority to even prosecute him. And he made good points, his lawyers, that there never was an IRS audit, that in fact he cooperated with the FBI with regard to his contacts with Ukrainian officials and explained that in fact he was making money at the time. So why did the government hang back this long? The only answer is they had a newfound interest in him when he became campaign manager for Donald Trump for a few months, and they wanted to get to Trump. So I think, by and large, this is so unfair. And then you have this very political judge in Washington, D.C., because there's another case there, Amy Berman Jackson, that throws him in solitary confinement. And she never even held a hearing as to whether he did tamper with witnesses. She's a complete political hack. T.S. Ellis is not. And
Larry, I was going to ask you about that before we move on to the Trump Tower meeting. I was going to ask you about that. Ellis seems to be a very fair judge. He's been spanking down Mueller's team. But do you think that Manafort is going to get as fair a shake in Berman Jackson's courtroom as he's getting in Ellis's courtroom?
Oh, no, she'll be crucified in Berman Jackson's courtroom. Judges can influence juries. They do influence juries. And T.S. Ellis is trying to influence this jury in Manafort's favor, it appears, so far. But Amy Berman Jackson is a vicious, politicized hack. I've had her in other cases. We don't have time to get into it. She doesn't have an ounce of integrity, and she will try to destroy Manafort during that trial.
Real quickly, and I do want to go to the tower, but you obviously have years of experience. Gina mentioned the 25 counts, 2 different trials. If you were just, I know you can't predict the future, but just based on what you know, based on your experience, where do you see this headed? What do you anticipate will happen?
I don't know absolutely, but I give it a 50% shot that Manafort will be acquitted on all counts, because I think the jury will see that there's something that's rotten in Denmark here. Kind of like O.J. Simpson, even though O.J. Simpson killed Nicole Simpson, that's not in dispute. The jury couldn't really fathom the thought of police taking blood out to the scene of the crime. And once you see that the government is not being honest and not playing it straight, juries react. And so I think that Manafort, better chance than not, will ultimately be acquitted here.
Okay, so Larry, if he's acquitted here, does that impact the trial in Jackson's courtroom? Does the jury's going to see his acquittal? It's going to be front page news. How does that impact that trial? Do you think she'll sequester the jury?
Jackson wants to hang him, okay? But it would give President Trump cover to pardon him at that time, say enough is enough.
All right, let's talk about that Trump Tower meeting in the few minutes that we have remaining. So President Trump continuing to defend his son, Don Jr.'s infamous 2016 meeting with Russians. Again, that took place at Trump Tower. So he tweeted, "The fake news is reporting a complete fabrication that I'm concerned about the meeting with my wonderful son, Donald, that he had in Trump Tower." Paraphrase that a little bit. This was a meeting to get information on an opponent, totally legal and done all the time in politics, and it went nowhere. I did not know about it. So then he followed that up tweeting this: "Why aren't Mueller and the 17, his favorite 17 angry Democrats, looking at the meetings concerning the fake dossier and all of the lying that went on in the FBI and DOJ? This is the most one-sided witch hunt." He didn't use rigged witch hunt, though.
He didn't say rigged witch hunt, hoax, just witch hunt.
Just witch hunt in the history of our country. Fortunately, the facts are all coming out, and it's fast. Trump finished his Twitter storm saying, "Oh, he didn't stop. We keep going."
But wait, there's more.
There is more. Too bad a large portion of the media refuses to report the lies and corruption having to do, there you go, wait for it, the rigged witch hunt. But that is why we call them fake news. So there's a lot of confusion over this. Some reports are saying that the president lied and then backtracked and said, the meeting was about adoption, and then he went backtrack and said, no, it was to get information about Hillary Clinton. Bottom line, does it really matter legally that he had this meeting?
I believe that it was Donald Trump that talked about the adoption. It wasn't the president, and maybe they did discuss that. It may be totally correct. But I don't understand this, gals and guys. I don't understand why the president's lawyers just go on TV. Yesterday with Sekulow, on ABC This Week, or Fox News with Hannity or whoever, and they just pontificate. Why aren't they actually doing anything concrete? Why haven't they brought a lawsuit, as we do at Freedom Watch? You can see them at freedomwatchusa.org, to try to bring about an end to this case, which obviously has violated the president's constitutional rights. They illegally surveilled him in a number of different ways. They illegally surveilled his family. Why are they sitting there just going on TV, pounding their chest how great they are, and they're doing nothing? Yeah. So I really take issue with that. The president is not being well served by his own lawyers, and he's got to take control at this point. He's the head of the Justice Department. He can order investigations.
Larry, let me ask you about something in that vein. So the FBI last week released what they called a release based on a lawsuit, a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, their files on their relationship with Christopher Steele. The only problem is it's about 70 pages. They're completely blank. They're fully redacted, all but for the index on the first two. Your opinion, what do you think the FBI is hiding?
Yeah, that's typical. Well, I got documents last week dealing with dealing with FBI communications with the media. I'm going to get Mueller's communications on September 4th, a case that we filed that Judge Emmett Sullivan said they better cough up those records. Well, not coincidentally, the only communications we have between the FBI and the media are the media talking to the FBI. There's nothing coming back from the FBI, and they've been leaking like a sieve. This government is so corrupt. This government has so broken away from the American people, particularly the justice system. I watched Dinesh D'Souza's film yesterday, Death of a Nation. Great title, because we're headed down the drain right now. We have no justice system.
Yeah, well, we agree and appreciate your time, Larry. These things are so important as we watch this whole case carry out. We're so glad to have your wisdom on it, because it really is something that has happened to our entire justice system, and it has to be fixed. So, Larry, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Larry.
Well, we're trying to do something at Freedom Watch. We are the People's Justice Department.
All right, Larry, thanks. Coming up after the break, we are going to talk about Ohio's special election tomorrow. Do we have any predictions?
I'm sure you guys.
It's tight. I think the Republican will win, but it's tight.
And the president's rally over the weekend. We're going to be talking about all that, how it ties together, and what we think the outcome would be. Stay with us.